Hello and welcome back to SIG Mechanics. I'm Edmund, and today I'm releasing a 3-part video series that I wish existed when I was getting acquainted with the P320. When I started out, every time I forgot how to do something, or either to take apart the gun or put it back together, I had to find a forum or scrub through an entire video to find one particular part or piece of information. So it could take me anywhere between 15 minutes or half an hour to find the information I needed. So in this video, I'm not only going to be disassembling the P320 into its smallest possible component, but I'm also going to be presenting the information in a way that can be indexed, like how someone might read a textbook. I'll have a complete table of contents, and you'll be able to find, within 60 seconds or less hopefully, the chapter of the video corresponding to the part or parts you need the information for. The 3 videos are going to be in-depth on the slide, the FCU, and the grip. Each part will have a chapter searchable in the comment section. I will also be providing you with the part's name and corresponding original 6 Sauer part number displayed on the screen for easy ordering if you need it. Before I start this video, I'm going to be dismantling the P320 into its absolute smallest component, meaning I'll be going far beyond a general field strip. So a disclaimer here, I'm not a gunsmith or an armorer, and failing to understand what you're doing could result in malfunctions or injuries, or at the very least, some lost parts. So if you're unsure about anything here, I recommend you see a professional who can either do the work for you or provide an extra level of guidance as you proceed. This video is dedicated to the slide. In front of you are all 19 components that make up the slide. Let's begin. The tools required for the deconstruction of the slide are a blunt plastic tip tool and a fine tipped hook or tool. Flip the slide over, locate the recoil spring assembly, put forward tension on the spring, lift up at an angle, and release the tension of the spring. With the slide upside down, locate the barrel, lift it up and forward slightly, then lift it at an angle and slide the barrel out. Locate the slide cap on the rear end of the slide, and by using a blunt tipped plastic tool, push in on the extractor spring assembly while pushing down on the slide cap with your thumb. When the slide cap is halfway removed, you can now pull it out with your fingers. Locate the extractor spring assembly on the back of the slide and gently pull it out of the channel. The extractor spring assembly breaks into 3 further components: the spring guide, the spring, and the pin. You can pull these apart with a little bit of pressure. Locate the extractor. With your thumb and index finger, grasp it and gently pull it out of the slot. Locate the striker assembly on the rear of the slide and use your thumb to gently push it out partially. And once you have the clearance, you can slide the striker assembly right out of the channel. The slide is almost completely stripped with the exception of the front and the rear sights. Due to the nature of and the work required to remove and install sights, I've decided to make a separate video that will allow me the appropriate amount of time I need to go through the entire process for both front and rear sights. So stay tuned for that. If your slide comes with the optic plate installed, locate the 2 screws and use a T10 Torx bit to remove the screws. With the screws removed, Just note that there are some teeth on this side of the slide optics plate. So remove the plate from the rear at an angle and then pull back. To disassemble the striker assembly, begin by removing the two plastic cups that are retaining this spring in its place. Keep in mind that the plastic cups are also adding tension to this spring, and you will need to keep constant pressure and tension on this spring as you remove the cups. If you release that tension too soon, your cups could go flying or your spring could go flying as well. Begin by locating the separating line between the cups, and I will keep one on the left and one on the right for the purposes of this demonstration. Put the assembly on a hard surface and create a gap between the plastic cups and the striker body. Once you've created that gap, you can actually just remove the cups with your fingers. Release the tension of the spring slowly, and the cups are removed. Slide the spring off the striker body. For this, you're going to need a fine tip tool or hook. Locate the safety lever spring on the right-hand side of the striker assembly. Note the spring leg that's interacting with the safety lever itself. Also note this pin stamped into the housing body. Put your thumb over this spring, and this will prevent the spring itself from flying out because right now it's under tension. Take your tool, insert it on the bottom leg, and lift it and place it over top of the lever. Now you'll see that the lever is no longer under tension, and the spring is also no longer under tension, so you can remove your finger from that spring, insert your tool, and pull out the spring. A cautionary note once you get to this point: there's a spring inside the housing. The spring is located between the housing and the striker body. If you look on the side, you can see a channel cut out into the housing where the spring is located. You shouldn't worry about the spring falling out easily until you remove the striker body. To remove the striker body, push in on the safety lever so it's in its up orientation and clears this bar. Once you do that, you can freely slide the striker body right out of the housing assembly. Proceed with caution when moving on to this step. Locate the spring inside the housing. With a fine tip tool, gently pull the spring out from its channel, and then remove the spring from the housing. Take the housing, locate the safety lever. With your thumb and index finger, you want to make sure that the safety lever is not in its up orientation, but instead in its down, so you can clear that bar. Now you're going to force it to lift up. Once it's up, it simply falls out the back, and it's been removed. Take your housing and the safety lever. Insert the bottom of the safety lever into the cavity stamped into the housing. Once it's placed, move the leg of the safety lever in place just below the separating bar here on the housing. Push with some force. You should press fit the lever into the housing. Now test for functionality. For this step, you're going to need a fine-tipped tool such as this. Take the housing and locate the channel to which the reset spring goes into. Grab your spring, place it into the channel, and then use your tool to recess the spring to the very back of this channel. To assure you don't lose the internal spring, hold the housing assembly in a horizontal orientation. While doing so, push up on the safety lever so it's at its highest point. Take the striker and insert the striker through the housing. Once on the other end, you can now test for functionality of the internal spring, and everything seems to work. The safety lever pin will be installed into the housing in the orientation you see here, with the shorter leg touching the top portion here of the housing and the longer leg interacting with the lever. The loop will go around the pin that's stamped into the housing body. Begin by taking the spring and placing the loop over the body. Keep the longer leg over top of the safety lever. Make sure that the short leg is touching the top bar over here and partially hiding behind the recess of the housing. At this point, we're going to put tension on the spring. So you want to put your thumb over the pin and with a tool, push the longer leg so that it sits and interacts with the lever. You can now test for functionality. Take the main spring for the striker and slide it over the striker body. The main spring's retention cups will require you to compress the main spring down far enough to create a gap between the body of the striker and the spring. This ledge is where the cups will rest once they're installed. Once you have the spring compressed down sufficiently, you will be able to place the cups in with your fingers. One cup is now installed. I'm going to slightly release the tension on the spring and rotate the striker. I'm compressing the spring again and placing in the second cup. Now that the second cup's inserted, I'm going to release the tension on the spring. The striker assembly is now complete. Locate the striker's channel on the rear end of the slide. Take the striker and insert it so that geometry all matches. Once it's in, simply push the striker the rest of the way. Locate the cutout for the extractor. Take your extractor and place it into the channel. Rebuild the extractor spring assembly. Take the spring guide and the spring and press fit them together. Do the same between the spring and the pin. Locate the channel cut out into the slide at the rear and insert the spring assembly. Just keep in mind that this little window allows you to see the merger between the spring assembly and the extractor. If you don't see the merger happen, you can always rotate the rear of the spring assembly until you see the two components merge. Keep one finger on top of the extractor and turn the spring until you see a complete merger. For this next part, you're going to need a plastic non-marring and blunt tool. You're going to use this tool to compress the extractor spring assembly in far enough so that the slide cap can go into the slide. To start, take the slide cap and partially fit it into the slide. If it doesn't go in easily, you may need to compress the striker slightly. Once it's inserted halfway, flip it around and put your thumb at the base of the slide cap. You're going to push in as far as you can into the slide with your non-marring tool. Once it's in far enough, push the slide cap in place. Rotate your slide upside down. Take your barrel and insert it at a sharp angle until sufficient clearance is made that you can drop the barrel into the slot. Now push back the barrel so that it falls into the respective chamber. Take your recoil spring assembly and locate the head. It's critical to know which orientation you're placing your recoil spring assembly into your slide, because incorrectly placing it will cause you issues either racking the slide or with fitment altogether. The head is going to be the side with the larger diameter face and usually flat, as opposed to the front end, which is a much smaller diameter, also a different geometry. Insert the front end through the channel. Once you have the head resting on the underlug of the barrel, push and compress this spring towards the front of the barrel and push down at the same time. Make sure that you press fit the head of the recoil spring assembly with the barrel's underlug. Thanks for watching part 1 of 3 in the complete disassembly and reassembly of the P320 slide. I'm going to be leaving you guys with a one-take, real-time, timed video of the complete process from disassembling it to reassembling it, because as I completed this video, I realized a 20-minute video with full explanations as I go through each step might make people think that the process is a lot harder than it actually is. So I'm going to just leave you guys with this video so you can enjoy and just see that anybody can do this. I also want to take an opportunity here to thank those that have subscribed to my channel, those who have left some positive comments on the videos and liked those videos. I appreciate it. I see that there is a want or a desire for this type of information, so I'm going to continue providing it. I do have a couple of interesting and requested things coming down the pipe. I'm just going to be starting to work on those now. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And if anything piques your interest, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of either the videos, or if there's anything, like I said, you're interested in. If there's enough requests for it, or if it's interesting, I will make a video for it. So again, give me a couple likes if you can, subscribe, comment, and I will be seeing you soon. Stay tuned for part 2 of 3, in where we will disassemble and reassemble the FCU.